Hello and welcome to week 4. This week's topic covers knowledge and concepts fundamental to the conduct of a financial statement audit. We start by revising, in formal terms, the objective of an audit and the respective responsibilities of the auditor and management for the financial statements. By formal terms, we mean as specified by the Corporations Act and the Australian Standards of Auditing, ASAs for short. As we know, the purpose of an audit is to provide assurance to users of the financial statements that the information is reliable for decision-making purposes. ASA 200, Overall Objectives of the Independent Auditor and the Conduct of an Audit in Accordance with Australian Auditing Standards, that's a very long name for a standard by the way, expresses it formally as stated on the slide. There are therefore two stages to be able to provide the users with assurance. The first stage is that the auditor obtains the assurance for themselves as a result of the audit process that has been conducted ethically and by following all the requirements of the auditing standards. The second stage is that the assurance is then communicated via the audit opinion in the audit report on the financial statements. Our second learning objective is quite straightforward, and that is to distinguish between management's and the auditor's responsibilities for the financial statements. Clearly, the Corporations Act states that management, and by management here we mean senior management, or formally those charged with governance, that is the board of directors and top management, so that management have the primary responsibility for the fair presentation of the financial statements, while the auditor's responsibility is to give that opinion on whether or not management have actually done that. The mandatory director's declaration in an annual report is where they sign that they are acknowledging and taking that responsibility for the financial report. So the directors are declaring that they have complied with the accounting standards, with the corporate law, and that the financial report gives a true and fair view, and also that the company can pay its debts as and when they fall due, or in other words, that the company is a going concern. The Centro case that we discussed in week 2 really reinforced and brought home to directors that they are the ones with the primary responsibility for the financial statements, and therefore they need to be able to actually understand them. Turning now to the auditor's responsibilities. In order to meet the objective of the audit, which as we saw according to ASA 200 is the provision of assurance, the audit must be designed to provide reasonable assurance of detecting material misstatements in the financial report arising from fraud and errors. How the audit is designed or planned to do this we'll cover in coming weeks. A few key points to note. We know, for all the reasons that we've previously discussed, the audit provides reasonable but not absolute assurance. It is impossible to detect 100% of errors. The auditor is legally responsible only for detecting material misstatements. This means that a judgment needs to be made of what is material versus what is immaterial. We cover this in more depth in week 6. In exercising that judgment, the auditor needs to maintain professional skepticism, as we know. That includes skepticism about the existence of misstatements caused by fraud, not just those by human error. So the auditor has specific responsibilities around fraud risk, which we cover in week 7. Then there's the case of illegal acts. The auditor also has some responsibility in relation to illegal acts committed by management. Under Section 311 of the Corporations Act, any breaches of the Corporations Act have to be reported to ACCC. Any other non-compliance with laws and regulation, NOCLAR for short, that is, breaches of regulations other than those of the Corporations Law, must also be responded to by the auditor. For all these illegal acts, the auditor's first duty is to report them to the board, and the board then should take action. It's only if no action is then taken by the board and the issue is not resolved that the auditor has a formal duty to report them to the relevant regulatory authority. The remaining videos in our Week 4 topic will give an overview of how the auditor actually fulfills their responsibilities in order to issue the audit opinion and meet the overall objective of the audit.